Good evening, everyone. So we are here with Pragya, with Arnav, with Kabir, and these are all people who have made it to the top business schools in the world. And I'm going to be moderating this session today. So for just a brief introduction about me, I'm an assistant manager at the Red Pen. In my career in higher education consulting, I have helped over 400 plus applicants get into top tier programs, and some have also received generous scholarships. Uh, Before the Red Pen, I have finished my education from Indian School of Business and also have an undergrad degree from SRCC Delhi. So I would now ask the people in the panel to please introduce themselves with the name, the university that you've attended, the current company that you're working at, the schools that you applied, and finally the schools that you went ahead with. So, Kabir, can we get started with you, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name is Kabir Bajaj. A little bit about me. I grew up in Mumbai. I finished my high school here, after which I moved to the University of Michigan to complete my undergrad in Industrial and Operations Engineering. Soon after that, I took up my first job in New York as a consultant at EXL Service. I worked there for 3 years and improved my knowledge on financial services, and then had to move back to India where I joined EY, and I just quit my job 2 weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to my MBA at Columbia Business School. The other schools that I applied to were Dartmouth Tuck, NYU Stern, Wharton Business School, and Northwestern Kellogg.
Awesome. That's great. So you just quit your job, all set to make the most of the time before you go to the business school, right? Arnav, could we please hear from you now?
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. I am Arnav. I am from Kochi. I grew up over here, but I did my high school in Singapore at UWC. And post that, I did my undergrad at Haverford, which is a small liberal arts college close to Philadelphia, where I majored in economics and did a minor in psychology. Post graduation, I worked at Added Education, which is a sports and education consulting firm, for around 9 months. After which, I've been at Bain in management consulting for the last 4 years. I also actually quit my job a week or so ago. And I'm looking forward to my MBA as well. So I'll be joining the London Business School 2-year program this year. And I applied to Columbia and Kellogg in the US along with LBS.
Thank you so much, Pranav. Arnav, could we hear it from you, Pragya?
Hi everyone, this is Pragya here. About myself, I grew up in an Indian military family. So I grew up across India and 30 plus cities, changed school like 10 times. I did my undergrad at IIT Kharagpur in ocean engineering and naval architecture. From where I moved on to investment banking at Deutsche Bank. So I worked in Mumbai and then in London for 6 years. And then after that, I took the plunge. I have my own startup. It's called Fit, and it's a business where we sell athletic socks, and now expanding to more products. And that's what I'm currently doing. Since it's my own business, I'm not quitting it. I'm
Okay.
pursuing my MBA to expand more on my business itself. And I applied to 2 business schools, LBS and INSEAD, out of which I got into INSEAD, and really looking forward to the MBA. Yeah.
Congratulations. Congratulations to everyone, rather. So, Pragya, one reason why you think you were able to stand out in the applicant pool?
I think it was my diversity of experience, right from my childhood experience of changing schools so many times, and then in my professional life as well. I've worked for projects across more than 30 countries, and it was just that diversity of experience in terms of also investment banking, ocean engineering, and now entrepreneurship. So I think that really helped me stand out in the application pool.
Wow, we really have a risk taker there. So, Arnav, how about you? What is that one thing that you think helped you stand out in the application pool?
I would say just like going in with like a well-rounded profile, well-rounded application. I think obviously having the Bain experience really helped, 4 years of experience at a top-tier consulting firm. But also I leveraged the fact that I've played tennis my whole life. I played varsity tennis and during my undergrad as well. And I've also had like a lot of international experiences, and I felt like that's something that really I played a lot on, especially for my LBS application.
Great. Could we hear it from Kabir, please?
Yeah, sure. So I was able to tie my story for the MBA down to my personal goals. So my goal was to create financial inclusivity and start a fintech in India to improve it. And I was able to tie that down to my history, where migrating from Sindh to India was not able to sort of like it caused a lot of financial struggles for my family, and then how I was able to grow towards achieving these goals at my past two jobs. And I think this really helped me stand out from a competitive pool of Indian male engineers.
Great. So, just for our viewers, if you have any specific questions, please continue putting it in the comment section, and we will pick it up towards the end. And if you could just let us know whom do you want the question to be addressed to, that would be great. So, moving on, I would now like to discuss the timing. I know in our panel we have people from very varied years of work experience. When Kabir applied, he was at 3.5 years of work experience. Arnav was at 4.5, and then we have Pragya at 8 years of work experience. So, my first question would be, why do you think this was the right time in your career to do an MBA? Anybody could please initiate.
Why don't I get started?
Yes.
So I have a significant amount of work experience. So back in my corporate job at Deutsche Bank, honestly, I never really felt the need of an MBA. However, it's the entrepreneurship journey that has really humbled me down and made me feel like, okay, it's time to take a step back and learn from what's the latest in the market. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve from my MBA. Get back to the learning mindset, network with people, and like build something really cool for the future. So that's what I'm hoping to do with my MBA at this time.
That's very aptly put, Pragya. I've done two of my own startups, and it does humble you down a lot, right? So it's a whole new reality. Arnav, how about you?
So I think for me, it's probably just the fact that now I've been at Bain for the last 4 years, and I mean, I've had a great experience, but I just felt like this was a time where I wanted to do something slightly more like impactful. And I wanted to. One was from a career perspective, I wanted to pivot into a different, like slightly more niche industry, something more specific. With consulting, obviously, you're looking at multiple different sectors. And also for me, I wanted to get some experience working abroad. That's something that I didn't get post my undergrad because of COVID. So I feel like all of these factors combined made this the right time for me to apply.
Great. Kabir?
Yeah, I can go next.
Yes.
So for me, it was also the main reason was I wanted to transition from consulting. So both my previous jobs at EXR Service and EY were consulting jobs. I wanted to move into industry at a small startup where I can get the experience of working at a firm that's already improving financial inclusivity, maybe not in India, but somewhere abroad. So that was my main reason. And I finished about 3.5 years in consulting, where I thought that it was time for me to move on to achieve my goals in financial inclusivity.
Great. Okay. So, Pragya, I have a question for you with regards to your startup. You mentioned how fit, which is into athletic socks, and which you've been running since 23, April 23, right? So, how are you evaluating the value of an MBA? And, what is it? What is the post MBA, path that you envision yourself on?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So for me, my long-term goal is it's just like my long-term goal that okay, there's a factory of like women like in manufacturing and exporting to international places. So that's like my really long-term vision, and that is something that I hope to achieve through this MBA as well. That I build on my international network, I really understand like the ins and outs of manufacturing. I'll take up specific courses related to that. So I'm really hoping this MBA will help me achieve that long-term vision that I have.
Great. So I think we'll just shift gears and now talk about test prep. I know that, Kabir, if you could just call out your test scores, we could go with Kabir first. And one tip that you think really helped you, perform to your optimal level.
Okay, so I took the GMAT 10th edition first. I got a 720. I just did one attempt of that. And then I took the GMAT Focus edition and I got a 695. Um, to most schools, I applied with the GMAT Focus edition 695. Wherever they allowed me to apply with multiple scores, I also added the GMAT 10th edition score. Um, I think what really helped me was first to create a consistent schedule. Maybe you're working 1.5 hours a day for 3, 4 months without any breaks, so that I don't lose track and lose flow of the progress that I've already made. And the second thing was to identify a good tutor. For me, I found someone, I did a demo class with someone in India itself, and I thought I got along with them very well. They also gave me a lot of time, and it was very consistent. I think that was key for me.
So consistency is what really stood out for you, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Arnav? If you could mention, I think you were at a 645. If you could
Yeah,
let
so I
us
got a
know what was that
645.
one.
Yeah, so I got a 645 on the GMAT Focus Edition. So I think naturally, like I would say, the GMAT probably was the weakest portion of my application, and maybe I can talk about like what I struggled with. I think for me, it was just like taking out enough time to like do the practice test before the exam. I feel like with just like my daily work schedule and the rest of the application, I feel like that's something that I probably didn't do enough of, and maybe that's where my score was slightly lower than I would have liked. So I think the main advice I would give there is just like taking out the time and just like practicing as much as possible, and doing the tests in like the proper conditions as well, even in your practice rounds, just so that it mimics the actual test to the best extent possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice because a lot of people tell me that they're nervous test takers. So, doing, it in an environment where it emulates as much as the final environment, it really helps. So, Pragya, could you go next and let us know one tip?
Yeah, so I got a 675 in my GMAT focus. And my biggest advice is just like start early, get it done ASAP, take a lot of practice tests, and then just like go for it. Test where you are now. If it's not good enough, you can give the exam again, but get it done with firsthand. Otherwise, it'll bother you when you're doing your actual essays, and that's the time you don't want to focus too much away from your MBA application itself. So yeah, just get it done early on.
Yes, and that's exactly what we tell our clients as well. That you should always take the test at a point wherein you have enough time to give one or two more attempts before you start deep diving into your application, like you're writing your essays and resumes. Because then working on resumes, essays along with test prep can get a little stressful, especially if the work hours are not very good, like how Arnav mentioned, right? Like he was really struggling to take out time. So yeah, I think that's a great advice. So guys, for all of you who are listening, now is the time. Get done with the GMAT, GRE, and then go and take the essay questions next. Right. So school selection, one of the most gray areas of the application, I would say. I would like to understand that what were your individual approaches when you considered your fit with business schools? Did you guys follow a strategy or you just went with your instinct? Arnav, please go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, I think I would say the first criteria I pretty much was just looking at the top, like the top 7 to 10 colleges, just because I felt like, if I was investing in an MBA program, I would want to do it at one of the top institutions. So I think that was like the first criteria I had in mind. And then moving forward, within the top ranked colleges, what I did was just a combination of things. One was I spoke to folks at the college or those alums just to understand from like a culture perspective and their experience perspective, like what they got out of it and what were the pros and cons. And I did that and I basically understood my goals in terms of what I want to do in the short term and the long term. And leveraging all these factors, I brought myself down to.
So Arnav's cracking for me is, are you guys able to hear him clearly? Kabir, Pragya?
No, I'm not able to hear him.
Okay, so Arnav, if you could just look at your Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, I'll pass that question to Kabir.
Yeah, sure. So, for me, what was really important was to get a global MBA. I wanted a network not only in the US, but also in the Middle East and India. And that's mainly because I see that I want to return to closer to home in the future. So, for me, that was one important criteria. In the short term, I also wanted the opportunity to work in the US. So, I also only applied to the US schools. With a focus on finance, I also chose the ones that were known to have a strong finance curriculum. And at the same time, I wasn't too rushed for time. So if I didn't get into a dream school this year, I would reapply the next year. So for me, applying to just the top 4 or 5 schools was important.
Okay. And Pragya, how about you? How did you go about selecting your schools?
Yeah, for me, it was a bit of mix of strategy and instinct. First, the instinct. Since I had already worked in the UK, so I was just more comfortable in the European side of things. So I knew I
Okay.
wanted to do my MBA in Europe, and over here, the top two colleges, in my opinion, were INSEAD and LBS. So that's how I made the narrowing decision. And plus, since I already have significant work experience, I wanted an MBA which had a shorter duration. So NCR just fits perfectly in with the 10-month MBA program. And then LBS also has like that optional 15-month course that I could have opted for. So that's how I made my decision.
Right. So it was comfort, the geography comfort, along with the entire duration that made you take a call to go to the UK side of the programs, right? European programs. Okay, Arnav, could we hear from you? And in case there's some problem, maybe you could switch off the camera. Maybe that could help.
Sure. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. So I think for me, like I would say the first thing was just I pretty much narrowed it down to the top, the M7s as you call it in the US, and I also wanted to explore a couple of options in Europe, just because I've had the undergrad experience in the US and I wanted to just keep my options open for other alternate geographies as well. And after that, I think the way I narrowed it down was just by speaking to alums and people who are at the college currently, just to understand their experiences, like really be able to figure out what they got out of it, and then tie it back to my short-term and long-term goals, and sort of narrow it down basis that. And I think definitely LBS was at like the top of my priority list, just because, as I mentioned before, I've done my undergrad in the US and I wanted like a global experience, which I feel like LBS provided, especially since long term I wanted to come back to India. So I think that was probably the biggest reason behind that.
Yeah, Arnab, I'm glad that you mentioned also about the fact that you spoke to so many people before you decided to apply and choose your program, because we at the Red Pen also are very cognizant of the fact that ranking should not be the only criteria for making this selection, because ultimately it's a huge investment both in terms of resource, time, and there's a huge opportunity cost because it's time away from work. So there should be multiple factors you should be looking at beyond the rankings, which is the resources which are available that will help you achieve your short-term, long-term goals in this college or not. What is the culture of the college, and does it fit into the culture which you would want to be in? Right, the class size. Is it a big class size or a small one, and which environment are you most comfortable with? A lot of factors should be there before deciding a business school, and rankings should not just be the only criteria when it comes to school selection. We'll now move on, and I know that some of you have applied in round one and some of you have applied in round two. So, if you could let the viewers know, do you think that there is any round that you would recommend over the other, or what is your suggestion? So, Kabir, could we go with you, please?
Yeah, sure. So I applied to 4 schools in round one, and I got into CBS in round one also. And my main reason for applying to, and I applied to 1 school in round two, and my main reason for applying to 4 schools in round one was because my application was almost ready. I worked with the Red Pen too, and they were able to help me with creating a strong narrative and also projecting me in the best way possible by the round one deadlines, which is why I thought that that would be the best time for me to apply. I applied to Wharton in round two because it has a slightly better program than CBS, and I was willing to shoot that one more time higher in order to see if I can get in. And I feel like there's not a very big difference between round one and round two. It depends on when your profile is the most ready. Um, I'd say that you should select schools tactically so that if you get into a certain school in round one, you can always aim higher in round two.
Yeah, agreed. That's the advice which we also give our clients, that it's always better to actually go do your dream schools a little later, especially if you're very sure that you want to do the MBA, go to the MBA this year. So yes, Arnav, how about you?
So I just applied in round two to the 3 colleges, and the reason behind that was just because I felt like, I mean, my application was not ready to apply in round one, and I think I would say, like, I would just echo that feedback in your advice, and just in terms of going in when your application is ready, rather than thinking a lot about round one versus two. But that being said, if I were to do it again, I would like ideally start the process slightly earlier so I can apply to at least a couple of colleges in round two, to give myself that flexibility to apply to a few, let's say, dream colleges in round two.
Got it. Pragya?
I applied to 2 schools in round one itself. For me, it was a bit more like I felt that my application was probably not ready. But that is probably like a nervous jitter that you get before submitting your application. That okay, maybe I should give my essays one more read, or did I do X, Y, Z technical things right? And that kind of nervousness keeps playing in mind that okay, maybe let's just like push it out to round two.
Right.
But I remember the Red Pen team, they were like, no, it's fine. I have read through your essay. It looks cool. Just trust the process and submit it. So yeah, like after I pressed the submit button, I realized okay, it was actually ready. So
Okay.
yeah, sometimes you yourself don't realize, but you're pretty
And you
much
need,
prepared.
yes.
Just like have some faith in yourself, and yeah, maybe you're already there.
Right, absolutely, and like time and again, we there is this myth around round one being better than round two. So I just wanted to let the viewers hear it from you guys that see, some of them have applied in round one and gotten through, and some of them have applied in round two and gotten through. So it really doesn't matter. Uh, just apply when you feel that you have given it all it takes to build a strong application and hit the submit button. So I wouldn't recommend that you hurry up and apply in round one thinking that all seats are free and the chances are higher, because it really doesn't work that way. Competition is equal across rounds. So apply when you feel that you are satisfied with the application. Uh, Great. So we'll move on now, and this is something very interesting. Now, differentiating yourself. This is a tough one, right? How do you differentiate yourself? So, what was your strategy to differentiate, yourself from the pool, Arnav?
So I think for me, like given coming from a consulting background, I think naturally a lot of people, I mean, a lot of applicants are from a consulting background. So I think
Yes.
the way I differentiated myself was one, just making sure I'm very like making my short term and long term goals very clear. So it was evident that I wasn't just applying because I was bored of my job. I wanted to do something different. So I think that was one thing I did, and the other thing I did was just I tried to ensure that the application was not just about my consulting background, but also about the other facets of my application, like the fact that I've had a tennis background, been part of a team as well. I try to leverage that, and then of course about like my international experiences as well. So I think just I tried to just showcase the well-rounded nature of my profile to stand out from the large pool of applicants applying from consulting.
Right. Kabir, how did you go about doing this?
Yeah, sure. So again, I'm from an overrepresentative pool of candidates. I'm an Indian male
Yes.
engineer, and I also did consulting post my undergrad. So and a lot of such profiles do reach out to the colleges. The way I looked at it was first to identify a strong goal, same as Arnav, and then how I've worked towards in the past few years. So I think what's really key is how you show intent, how each move you've taken from maybe undergrad onwards is building towards your long-term goal. And I was able to show that through identifying that my long-term goal was financial inclusivity, how I'm using my engineering knowledge in my current roles to build experience in fintech, and how to improve identifying improvements in the credit worthiness of people all across the globe. And then lastly, making a job switch 1 month before, 1 year before applying to India, to show that I've worked in two geographies for a decent enough time. And this naturally led me to say that, okay, I've worked in India, I've worked in the US, I have some idea of how things work, and I feel like getting the MBA, doing a few courses at college, and learning from certain professors will help me take my knowledge back to India where I can complete my long term goal.
Right. Thank you for that, Kabir. Pragya, could we hear it from you?
Yeah, so for me as well, I come from investment banking experience, so probably like an overrepresented pool. However, from there, I took the plunge, I took the risk, and I went into entrepreneurship. I have my own company that I myself built from scratch. I manage a team of two women, and that is something I think really helped me stand out in the application pool what I've been able to build. And plus, my company also works well with my hobbies, which is triathlon. So I'm a triathlete myself. And I think that really plays well into the entire value system, that I am someone who's like really motivated towards sports. And that's what my business is about as well. So I think that helped me stand out.
Okay. Yeah, and also the fact that you mentioned, right? So your growing up experiences, the army experiences, changing cities, and all of that also shows that you can integrate into any sort of a cultural environment very quickly and start contributing to the environment, which I think is something which really goes down with every AdCom, including INSEAD. We'll now talk about authenticity in the application, right? So we keep advising our clients that please be as authentic, and sometimes being authentic can also be risky, right? So how did being authentic play out in your individual applications? Any of you guys, please take the lead.
Why don't I go? Um,
Yeah.
so I think for me personally, MBA schools really appreciate being honest about your experiences in your application. So, for example, INSEAD even has questions pertaining to when have you failed in life.
Yes.
So just you have to talk about everybody has some failure in their life, right? It's not about you had a failure, it's how you overcame it. It's about sharing that experience that really matters to these schools. That okay, I took this risk and I had XYZ challenges, and here is what I did, and this is the result that I got. So yeah, B schools, I mean, when you're going through interviews, you'll realize that if you've been dishonest about anything in the application, interviewers will definitely catch it. So the first advice that people gave to me was like, be authentic yourself, and that's what people will appreciate as well.
Yeah, and vulnerability is something which is really shows that you have, we should not shy away from showing our vulnerability as a leader as well, right? So and that's something which makes it authentic at the same time. Arnav, how about you?
Yeah, I think I feel like being authentic is definitely very very important in the application. I think just because like these admissions officers, they read through like thousands of applications, so they can notice if you're not being authentic, or like if you're just keeping things at a surface level. So I think it's just very important to ensure that everything you talk about, there's some intent behind it, and there's a story behind, like there's a well-rounded story behind everything in your application. I think that's very important. And as Pragya mentioned, I think this really comes out in the interview, where they are able to question you on every part of the application. So if there are certain parts that you're not fully authentic about, then that's something that can potentially come up in the interview. So I think it's very very important. And I think also, yeah, like especially in the interview as well, it's okay to say that you've failed in certain times, or like you feel like you've not done well. I think what they're looking for is just how you've learned from those situations, how you've picked yourself back up, and got to where you are currently. So yeah.
Right. So very rightly put. Kabir, could we hear it from you?
Yeah, sure. So I guess similar insights as Pragya and Arnav. It's important to be very authentic. There are schools like Kellogg and Columbia that have essays centered around your values and how you deal with certain challenges, how you've helped underrepresented groups through your past experiences. And if you're not authentic, then sometimes it can come through in your interviews that happen post the application. So Kellogg has a 4 minute or a minute video after the application. Sometimes they ask you to speak about these stories, and if they don't come out as authentic as possible, then it's very easily seen by the interviewer or the adcom. So I would recommend strongly to be as authentic as possible throughout.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine to show our weakness, right? What matters is what did you learn from that particular failure, from that weakness, and how did you grow as a person, and how has that led you to the place that you are at right now, right? So I think being vulnerable, showing your weakness is totally fine. What really matters is how you saw through those and how you grew as a person from those failures, from those weaknesses. So yes, for everyone, loud and clear, very important to be authentic. The other side, it's thankfully it's not AI who's reading these applications; it's humans who are reading this application for now. So try to be as authentic and as yourself as possible. And for all you know, just being you actually becomes a differentiation, right? So moving on, we'll talk about interviews. Kabir, how important was the interview in the overall application process, right? Like, could you share some insights from your experiences of the business school interview?
Yeah, sure. So I got interviews from three schools, Columbia, Kellogg, and Dartmouth Tuck. And then for these schools, I'd say once your application is in, it's obviously the next most important thing. Um, so you have to focus on preparing a lot. You need to ensure that your pitch, your tone, your content is all rehearsed, but not to an extent where the adcom knows it's rehearsed. It's also important to keep the lighting and dressing formal enough so that you create a good impression. Um, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it's like a make or break. Even if you don't have the best interview, the other parts of your application may stand out to the adcom, and you might also get into a school. Um, so for me, I had interviews from all three. I only got into Columbia. My Columbia interview was in person, and I would recommend strongly that if you have the opportunity to take an in-person interview, if it means flying to a different city for a day, it's a better idea because you're able to create a lasting impression and probably create better feedback for the interviewer to the adcom. And if you're able to create a good impression during the interview, you should always send a feedback note, letting the recommender know how you've learned better from his conversation and how you think you can make a bigger impact at campus once you're there.
Right. Arnav, how was your interview experience?
So I interviewed with LBS and with Kellogg, and I mean I had a very good interview experience. I think a couple of things I did. One was just I had like a list of like 70, 80 questions, potential questions that could come up. So I think preparation was really key in the whole interview process. But as Kabir mentioned as well, it was very important to be like authentic as well during the interview, so it didn't seem like I had just rehearsed it and just like read off a script. So I think that was very important. And I think like, yeah, just like being authentic, just like treating it like a conversation. I think that made the interview a lot less formal, and it just made it a lot better. So I think those things really helped me out in my interview.
And what would be your suggestion? Generally, there's always this option of asking the interviewer a few questions, right? Uh, how did you go about handling that part?
So with the interview questions, I would say this depends on who your interviewer is. So for me, both my interviewers were alums. So what I did was asked questions just on their experience at the respective colleges. Given this was something that you can't just read on a website. So I think that was I felt like that was useful. And the other one was just actually asking questions basis the conversation that I had. So it's not like I've just come in and asked those 2, 3 rehearsed questions, but I've actually based it on the conversations. So it shows that I've been listening and I've really been engaged in the interview.
Yes, I think that's an advice which is very good, because active listening is also one of a very important leadership skill, right? So just going with rehearsed questions can sometimes make you look very plastic, right? So it's always good to actually have a follow-up question basis the conversation. Really talks a lot about you as a person as well. Pragya, how was your interview experience?
Yeah, no, so I had my interview with INSEAD and LBS, and I think interview is a really important part of the entire process. And for me, I went with, I really pushed for offline, but in one case, I did have an online meeting. However, it was a very pleasant interview experience, irrespective of offline or online. So, I mean, you can push for offline as much as you want, but it's at the end the interviewers call. So all of them were alumni who were interviewing for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an online one. I was a bit nervous because you may feel that you might not have that kind of connect online, but we were
Right.
both entrepreneurs, so we did end up bonding quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. So one more thing that I want to add here is that I had also read up a bit about my interviewers before meeting with them, just so that when we're having that interview, it feels more like a conversation. So it was not like I was waiting till the end to ask my questions. Whenever the interviewer would talk about a specific experience, I would be like, "Oh, can you talk XYZ more about that topic?"
Right.
Just have it more of a conversation. So yeah,
No,
that's
I
my.
think yes, that's something which should be done irrespective, right? Like whether it's an MBA, business school interview, or a job interview, whatever sort of interview. It's always good to look up the profile of the interviewer beforehand to be able to understand briefly about the person. And also another best practice, which Kabir has already mentioned, is also to send a thank you note and writing something in it that helps the interviewer remember you, right? Because at the end of the day, if the interview went great and the interviewer remembers you, the chances of getting a final offer basis the interview is very, very high. So great. We'll move to LOR. So Pragya, I have this question for you, because especially for you in the panel, you were doing your own startup. So, whom did you go for an LOR?
Yeah, so for INSEAD, you need two recommenders, and the first one was fine from my corporate job at Deutsche Bank, but the second one was something that I was a bit more worried about because I'm a solo entrepreneur, and I really didn't know who to have as my recommender because it's not like my clients are like long term, like business clients who would really know my everyday workings. So it had worked out well for me because I did have a mentor who I used to constantly nudge questions with relation to my e-commerce kind of startup. Now, I used to have something like a bi-weekly contact with her, just like pinging her questions. So my question was more around, okay, can I have her as my recommender? But because this is the level of interaction, and we have to declare it on the application as well, that how often do you interact with your recommender. So for me, it was more of a bi-weekly contact, but that worked out pretty much fine because the recommender um, was well aware of what my business was doing. She was in the investing space in e-commerce, so she really understood the business well, and that reflected probably in her recommendation as well. So yeah, for me that worked out fine.
Great. Kabir, how about you? Did you take your recommendation from your current employer, previous employer, and if so, why?
Yeah, so I actually switched jobs last September, just around the time of the round one applications. And since I had round one applications going in, taking a recommendation from my current employer was not really an option. I took in a recommendation from my previous employers, and I think it worked out pretty well because they had seen how I'd worked with them very closely, almost on a daily basis for the last 3 years. And this is a very common question amongst a lot of people applying because they don't often want their current employers to know that they are applying to business
Yes.
schools. So they often ask their previous employers. And I don't really see any downside. It should be just from the person who knows how you work and how you perform in certain situations, as they have to speak to that in the letter of recommendation.
Right. And Arnav, whom did you take your recommendation from? What was the designation of the person whom you took it? Was it your immediate manager or?
So both my recommendations were from partners at Bain, and so I was actually debating between whether to take it from, let's say, the my immediate reportee, like my manager or my partner. But as it turns out, my manager left Bain just before my application, so it made the process pretty simple. I mean, like I just had to get it from the partner. But I would say there's no harm in getting a recommendation from a manager, say, versus someone more senior, as long as that's the person that you worked more closely with. I think that is probably the more important thing when thinking about the recommendation.
Yeah, exactly what I was coming to, because we keep getting this question as to can we take the recommendation from the founder, from the CEO, from the director, but the designation doesn't really matter. What matters is, and what Kabir and Pragya has also mentioned, right? So somebody whom they have worked with closely. Pragya is connected with the mentor very often. Kabir's worked very closely with the person whom he's taken the recommendation from, because ultimately the aim of of even asking for a recommendation is to know you better as a professional, right? So it doesn't matter if it's coming from a partner or it's coming from a manager. The thumb rule should actually be whether you've worked closely with the person enough to be able, for him to be able to comment about your working style, right? So great. Any last minute suggestions, advice that you have for our viewers? Anyone? Kabir?
I think you need to identify what your goals are for an MBA first, depending on what you want to pursue after that. It really depends. Your schools will really depend on that. If you want to work in the US, then choosing a US college is important. But at the same time, if you're looking for a short term or like a shorter course, you can look at 1 year MBAs in the US or wherever else too. And then choosing schools tactically is also really important. You shouldn't overshoot for sure, because every year applications are becoming harder and harder. The acceptance rates are dropping. So just having select schools that you think are your dreams, and then maybe a level below that, just in case you want to have the option to go that year, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. I think we are at almost nearing the session. Just for our viewers, before we take the Q&A, we at the Red Pen, we do multiple service lines of consultation. And if I have to talk about Team MBA specifically, these have been some of the stats. 99% of the applicants received interview invites. 94% applicants received offers to their top two choice schools. And we've had 2.4 plus million dollars in scholarships so far. We've had admits to all M7s. We have also had admits to INSEAD, to most of the European and the top UK programs, including the Indian School of Business in India. So if you're interested in knowing more about our services and some of the special offers that we have for the upcoming cycle, do reach out to us. If you could just go and book a slot. We are offering a 30-minute free consultation, and you could know more about us from there on. Now we'll just quickly move to the questions. Let me just go scroll up. Okay, so Vaku is asking, hi, what was GMAT scores and GPA? So Vaku, Kabir was at a 695, Arnav was at a 645, and Pragya was at a 675. All of them had taken the GMAT. Could you please let the viewers know your CGPAs as well, Kabir, Arnav, and Pragya?
Yeah, I
Kabir,
can
you
go
can start.
first.
Yes.
I did my college in the US. My GPA was 3.8 out of 4.
And my GPA was 8.3, but I was also department rank 1 back in IIT Kharagpur.
8.3, is that what you mentioned, Pragya?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Anna?
Yeah, mine was 3.9 out of 4 from a US college.
3.9, right? 3.9, is that what he said?
Yes.
3.9, okay. So Baku, I hope that addresses your question. Okay, which university I can get at 70% in my undergrad? Well, that's just one of the data points, and it's very difficult to comment. We will have to know more about your profile to be able to give you a better guidance on which of the universities you can apply to, and and guide you better on the school selection process. So you could actually book the free consultation and reach out to us. Uh, Tuba is asking, do we need to have an A2 level proficiency in a foreign language in order to apply to INSEAD? Would my application not be valid otherwise? So since we have somebody who's just gotten admit to INSEAD, Pragya, why not hear it from you? Did you
Yeah, no,
have
so it's
any?
absolutely not necessary to have A2 level in any foreign language. You just need to know 2 languages. For us in India, you usually know Hindi and English. So I think that works out fine. INSEAD used to have a third language requirement. So for me, I was thinking of pursuing French. I'm already at a B1 level in French. However, they have removed that requirement from our batch onwards. So now it's just 2 languages. I will add that it might look good if you are at a certain level in a foreign language, because it just shows like that interest in an international experience, and that's something that helps for INSEAD, I guess, because they really value people who value that international aspect of things. INSEAD is really focused on international diversity, leadership, impact. So that's the international aspect of things.
Great. Thank you so much, Pragya, for addressing that. We have another question by Walter White. 2.9 GPA, 4 years work experience, killer essays, 6095 GMAT. Can I get through business schools? Walter, why not? Why don't you, let's talk further because, as I said, right, like we need to understand the profile better to be able to address any of the questions with regards to can I get through a business school or not. So, Navya is asking how many months prior should you start working on your applications. So, Kabir, do you want to take this? How many months prior should you start working on your application?
Yeah, so since the application entails the GMAT, I would say as early as possible. The GMAT score is valid for 5 years from the day you attempt it. And then you can always choose the schools that you want to apply to with the GMAT much later, even after you've taken it. So I would say start the GMAT as early as possible. There's no timeline. The least, or sorry, the latest you should start it is um, probably like 6 to 7 months before, because you need a strong 3 to 4 months, and then you need time to write the essays and build your application to the strongest of your ability. So I'd say you need at least 6 to 7 months.
Yes. So, how many months prior you should start working on your application? I would say, Navya, it's best to first take the GMAT, get done with the GMAT, and typically it also depends on the number of schools that you're applying to. So, if let's say you are aiming at an 8 or a 10 school shortlist, then that's a lot of schools, right? So then any good application, at least I would say that keep at least eight weeks in hand, if not just solely for the application, right? When you've taken all other parts have been taken care of, then at least 8 weeks or more is recommended. But the more the better. So if we've always seen that people who come to us early tend to have better results solely because they've spent a lot of time in the application process. So I think we're done. There are no more questions. I would like to thank Pragya, Kabir, Arnav for taking out time on a Saturday evening and talking to the viewers. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. And all the best for the journey ahead. We look forward to seeing you as future leaders and much more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much, Kunju, for hosting, and all the
Thank
best to
you.
everyone for their application journeys.
Bye. Bye, everyone.